Last time on Washer Dryer.
The most annoying thing would be to fall out of the sky, die, and have to start collecting all of the collectibles again.
And now, the conclusion.
Well now, that didn't go exactly as planned, did it? Hello and welcome back to Washer Dryer Freezeezy Peak Part 3. I am Grim Grindle, and hopefully this episode will be considerably more successful than the last one. As you might well have noticed, currently everything's moving rather rapidly on the screen, and that's because of course, as the top right of the screen is indicating, we've sped it up considerably because you're not seeing anything we've not already done before. You see, since this challenge is being done on the Nintendo 64 version, if you die, unfortunately all of the collectibles excluding the honeycombs and jiggies are reset, which means that I once more have to collect all of the presents again, the music notes again, and all of the gingers again. And also all of those dastardly snowmen have once more been resurrected. And while we're still catching up, let's slow it down momentarily to enjoy what was very nearly another very annoying and rather serious mistake. You see, my overzealous nature made me want to viciously murder an ice cube with the power of my airborne beak attack. Doing so very nearly made me have to start again once more. However, fortunately, much like Grin attempting to do any form of physical exercise past a 10-second sprint, I eventually collected myself and limped on. And so, in a fashion not dissimilar to the sequel of Power Rangers Zeo, let's shift into turbo once more and speed things along again. And in doing so, as we speed past me viciously slaying some more snowmen in a much more successful manner than in the previous video, practice clearly does make perfect, we make our way to the top of the snowman. The big snowman, not the ones that I just viciously murdered. And while we make our way down the snowman ever so slightly, collecting eggs and Christmas paraphernalia, we run into what is definitely another bit of a problem. But before we explore that issue entirely, while I'm here, I might as well make like Francis Drake circumnavigating the globe. I figure I might as well take this time to run around the head of the snowman and collect all collectibles found around said head. And with that little runaround complete, with us return to the start, as is the nature with circumnavigation, we in doing so find ourselves back at the destination of said problem. You see, this here is Boggy Sled. And, as you might well notice from my interaction with Boggy Sled, is that there is, well, very little interaction going on with Boggy Sled. Now, this is a real issue, because if I can't ride Boggy Sled, I can't slide down this here slope and land on Boggy. If I can't land on Boggy, Boggy won't cough up a jiggy, which means I'm one jiggy down. It also means, however, that he won't go over to the racetrack, which means I can't race Boggy, which means I'm now 2 jiggies down. And, of course, further, it means that once I get the sand shoes, I can't race him a 3rd time, which means I'm 3 jiggies down. This here darn sled just cost me 3 jiggies. And at the risk of saying the words which means for the 5th time in 30 seconds, what we've just proven is, unfortunately, washer dryers can't ride sleds, which means that snow days are not nearly as fun for them. However, moving on past that and speeding up ever so briefly, I accidentally collected another Mumbo Jumbo token which was sneakily concealed under a much needed honeycomb, which is disappointing, but I'm sure I'll learn to live with the error. And then, speeding up once again, I arrived at the rather chilly lake, which fortunately doesn't affect the washer dryer because it's a washer dryer and so therefore is neither warm nor cold blooded, as it is instead a washer dryer, collected another honeycomb piece, got some more music notes, and found yet another Jinjo. And then, for a short amount of time, nothing really at all exceptional happened. We did eventually collect enough music notes that we finally caught up to where we were before I messed up and plummeted to my death in the previous episode. I then randomly ran around pointlessly for a little while trying to remember what I had and had not done and trying to remember what collectibles I had and had not completed. It's sort of difficult to keep track of things when you're forced to do things all over again, until I eventually took to the air once more with the intention of slamming buttons like an enthusiastic typist. Now, I know what you're thinking, and the answer is no, such a pastime did not suddenly take my fancy because I wanted to win a Pulitzer Prize or something, or because I desired to become a New York Times bestseller, but instead because I was graced with the knowledge that destroying all of the snowman's buttons would result in him plopping out a jiggy. And so, with the well-trained accuracy that only a bear and a bird transformed into a washer-dryer machine could possibly muster, I made with the button-busting post-haste, and before long, the buttons were slowly becoming busted. I'm not sure why destroying someone's buttons would force them to defecate, and really, I don't think I want to know, and I'm going to try my best not to think about it. But either way, with the deed done, the jiggy has been released, and is now free to be collected. But before we do so, as we currently have the ability to fly, it's probably best to actually head up before we head down. Which I do, not because the views are stunning, though they are, but instead because there is of course a Jiggy up there that I've yet to get, because last time I attempted to do so, I instead punched my way through an ice cube and plummeted downward. And so, having acted with far more restraint, and having viciously murdered the children of the ice cube that I killed prior, the jigsaw piece is ripe for collecting, and it's time to finally head from the pinnacle to the pit. However, on the way over, we're going to have a brief stopover and make like the Book of Revelations, because it's time to meet up with Mumbo Jumbo and break out a seal, but only one of them, not 7. And so, while in the home of the great shaman and future pretty good mechanic Mumbo Jumbo, we collected the second last of the Jinjos and the last of the music notes before heading down to Mumbo Jumbo's magic mat to receive the benefits from Mumbo Jumbo's magic. It also did not escape my notice that we still have far too many transformation tokens to actually test if you don't need the tokens to transform. I did think that by now we might be at a point where we don't have enough, considering I've been actively avoiding trying to pick them up for the last few levels, and while I picked up a couple, I've definitely missed many. It just somewhat seems that the requirement you need is so few that there was actually very little point putting a requirement in the game whatsoever. And we're going to speed up a lot of this footage in between sections here, because by the 12 Olympians does this seal transformation move really darn slow. And so while briefly back in normal speed, Jiggy collected, which is good, and we're back in fast forward. And while back in fast forward, we make our way rapidly towards this cave, fast forwarding entirely past me checking if it would let me use the bobsled while transformed into a seal, because, long story short, it wouldn't. But before we do go inside, Wazza first decides to give me a jigsaw piece on the basis entirely that I am a walrus and not a washer-dryer machine, proving simultaneously that Wazza's a racist, discrimination is still very much a thing in the land of Banjo-Kazooie, and perhaps more importantly, that I've been facetiously referring to what I've transformed into as a seal for the last few minutes. It also means that my witty quip about the Book of Revelations was entirely irrelevant. But hey, this is just a playthrough of Washer Dryer. If you're expecting flawless identification of sea mammals, then maybe you should have tuned into Animal Planet instead. And in an attempt to make a less biblical simile, I made like Prince Zuko in the second last episode of the first season of Avatar: The Last Airbender, Book 1, Water, and worked my way through the underwater ice tunnel in order to pick up my honeycomb. But now, let's fast forward real fast, because the only thing between what I just did and what I need to do next is walking all the way back to Mumbo Jumbo's house and transforming, and then walking all the way back to Waz's cave. And so with that completely entertaining travel over, I do my best to ignore Waz's hurtful comments and convince myself that they come from a place of ignorance, get the last Jinjo, which gives me the last Jiggy, and spy a peek at a most curious ice key. Oh me, oh my, I wonder what it's doing there. Oh gee, oh whiz, I wonder how you get to it. Oh well, I shall do my best not to obsess over the purpose of that key for the next decade. And so, moving past that and following the final fast forward, we find ourselves in Boggy's house amongst Boggy's neglected children. Upon arrival, my concerns were very much vindicated in that, much like the coconut on Mumbo's mountain and the golden treasure trove cove, I am not actually able to gift any of the presents, which of course means, for these children, Christmas is entirely ruined. Probably a good thing that I didn't actually manage to get this video done in time for the Christmas season. Sorry about that, kids. I know you've been looking forward to it all year, but you'll just have to take it up with Rare. They're the ones that didn't give me the animation. And so that brings us to the end of the Freezeezy Peak section of Washer Dryer. Unhappy ending for Boggy's children, but I suppose a happy ending for me because I get to keep their presents.